Just one more round of applause. Not to mention our music director, so yes. Thank you, choir. My friend and colleague, the Reverend Michael Tino, posted a couple weeks ago what he calls his annual theological rant on Facebook. Now, Michael and I go way back. We were in the same home congregation, and we later overlapped at seminary. And because he was Dr. Michael Tino before he was Reverend Michael Tino, a physicist, because he is, most importantly, one of the people who fed my baby Squash nearly 20 years ago, which is really his important credential, I quote him here. "The earth," he writes, "is not resurrected in the spring or at Easter. It has not been dead. The bulbs dormant under the soil are not dead. The trees barren lifeless through the winter are not dead. The animals hibernating in their dens are not dead. In spring, the earth awakes anew in the natural cycle of life that happens every year. Perhaps it is reborn at a time when we need it to show us signs of life. Resurrection requires death and is outside the natural ways of the world. Feel free," he writes, "to connect these concepts, but please do not conflate them." Now, some of us this morning may have entered this sanctuary the way that Mary through the garden went, with eyes swollen by tears, heavy-hearted, in need of some kind of metaphor of rebirth. And I do believe this is a time when we need the earth to show us its signs of life, which it is doing very well today. And on this Easter Sunday, which falls this year before Earth Day, as I mentioned earlier, it is a time to think about what needs to be renewed, which seems to me in some way is about our being agents, human agents, within a natural order. Now, the natural order is the order of the flowers and the turkey, while conflating the turkeys are not conflating right now, but they are frequently inflating, trying to attract a mate this time of year. There is the smell of the warm earth, and in ways that we can turn to one another and commit and connect to each other. The natural order is not found so much in things that we buy, or even the ways that we can oppose or confound one another. It is in our eagerness to come together and find one another in this season. To me, the story of faithfulness is the story of the Last Supper, the last Peshach, actually, because scholars do believe that the famous Christian symbol of the Last Supper was, in fact, a Passover Seder, such as the one we will celebrate together this next Wednesday. We hope you will join us. Historians would again have us learn in that meal that Jesus plants in his faithful the idea that they could maintain the inclusive and loving community that he had helped draw out of them, helped them create, even after what seemed like his imminent death. That the idea which they had tied in their mind simply to him was actually an idea that was all of theirs. I have often thought that communion tables, which often have the words, "Do this in memory of me," in honor of the biblical text, could also say, "Do this in memory of we." For it is, I believe, the true message of this season that over the ritual foods of that meal, Jesus reminded people that he had only been the embodiment to draw out the wholeness that was already within them. The wholeness that those of you who paused at our mirror saw staring out at you, the wholeness that we can achieve together. Jesus' followers in those days wanted the glory and the vision of a world where all was right, and they wanted it to be Jesus' vision, and they wanted to be the followers because it was easier that way. I think that is part of the natural order of things, that we want things to be simple and ordered and easy. But sometimes they aren't, and so we come back to these rituals of renewal. We want to be right. We want those who disagree with us to be wrong. Perhaps that is one of the delusions of this unnatural world we live in too often, one of those attractive deceptions that renewal can now save us from. In our world today, we want easy answers about how we can fix the damage we have done to one another, to this earth, through our unnatural acts, through consumption and excess and getting too far away from the earth, which calls to us this time of year to remember our raisings. We are each needed in the renewal, which might in our age ask us to approach it with the spirit of Wendell Berry in his poem, The Mad Farmer's Liberation Front. I will quote just a little bit. It's worth reading the whole thing. So friends, he writes, every day do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world, work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who does not deserve it. We renew our commitments to things we have yet to know. For if our times renew anything within us, it is the knowledge that faith is about going where we do not have easy answers. For example, how is it that we can decide to allow all of us to have the place and the space that we need in this world without experiencing that as taking it away from us? How can we hold the both and the and find those places of common ground? And I was thinking last night as I was having the opportunity to dye eggs with the children in the winter nights guests, that the egg, the symbol of renewal and birth, is both a symbol within the pagan tradition, the Christian tradition, and is also one of the items on the traditional Jewish Seder plate. It is one place where we find commonality in these days. Rabbi Sandy Eisenberg Sasso was a little girl who felt herself called to serve her God, and she knew there was no easy path because girls did not serve in that way. She became one of the first female rabbis in her tradition. She says this about our dance this time of year with the traditions of the past. She says, you take that tradition very seriously because after all, it is the product of our ancestors' search for God, so you revere that tradition. But at the same time, you too are on your own search for the divine. You too are created in a sacred image. So should you not breathe your own breath and your own soul into that tradition to keep it alive and vital? I think so. Balance. Balance is the key. Revere the past and hold it gently as a sacred vessel, but at the same time, pour in your own breath into that vessel. Renewal in our tradition is the faith that we can find a way to know our wholeheartedness, our connections with one another and with the earth, that we can find ways to renew our commitments to one another at this time of the year, that we can be renewed in our relationships and in our own transformation because we witness the renewal each year around us. A field, you know, I learned in forestry school, will become a forest if it's left to seed. The way the land will reclaim the bones of a house when abandoned to time. The way that our own hearts will be renewed to wholeness when we're held in the natural rhythms of the world. Within them, we can ask these questions of our spirits. How do I care for myself and restore myself to wholeheartedness? How do I plant the seeds of purposeful growth? How do I commit and recommit to our beautiful and beleaguered earth? How do I deepen my life-saving commitments to others? May the season of renewal rekindle joy within our hearts. On this day of light and gladness, when lo, the earth awakes anew, new and renewed, may our spirit and our commitments be well in this day.